Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews unboxing. Today we are having a look at Warcry, Heart of Ghur, the new starter box, I guess, for the new edition of Warcry. So Warcry, if you don't know, is a skirmish game set in the Mortal Realms. Think Kill Team for Age of Sigmar, and you're part way there. It uses kind of a different rule system, and it's been pretty popular. It's been a nice way. The first edition was set within the kind of variant by the 8 points. With various Chaos tribes fighting over the attention of Archaon, the Ever-Chosen. And we've seen this expand out in various other expansions. We had the Catacombs, which had kind of underground battles, and we had the Red Harvest box that was about a mining operation, mining Varanite. And for the first time, we see Warcry move to a different part of the Mortal Realms, and now we're in Ghur, the realm of beasts, which is also the location of the current storyline in the Age of Sigmar. So it's nice to see us expand out from that region and visit other places. So before we dig on with the review, I just want to kind of say massive thanks to Games Workshop for sending us a free review copy ahead of time, so we can open it up and have a look at it with you guys, and hopefully get some of this painted and show you off towards the end of the video as well. Yeah, Warcry looks a really cool system. It's really kind of grown into its own with a lot of the supplemental books that had some really cool like quest material, kind of like a pick your own adventure kind of style. So if you check out the website and the other videos, we've got a few reviews of some of the older Warcry content. But yeah, this is the second edition of the game. We've got a new look. I believe some of the rules are tweaked. Obviously, as we dig through this and look through the rule book, we'll see what's changed really. But the main appeal for this really is the two new warbands and the awesome new scenery as well. Let's turn this hefty box over, and it is a massive heavy box. So we can have a look at the content. So we've got the Horns of Hashut, who are the kind of human worshippers of Hashut, who is the god of the Chaos Dwarves in the world that was. Sadly, no Chaos Dwarves in this box, but we do have his mortal followers, and they are up against the Rotmire Creed, who are a very Nurgle looking warband. They worship a god who definitely isn't Nurgle, but they really like plagues and diseases and green. So yeah, they're very Nurgly ones. They've got cool stuff like stilts for going through the swamps where this is set. And with this being set in Ghur as well, the scenery is themed as such. So we've kind of got a bit of kind of jungle and tree elements to it. We've got lots of skulls as fits Ghur. And we've also got the remains of a crashed Seraphon starship as well, which is pretty cool. And again, all the tokens and rules and cards and stuff. So what we're going to do in the video is have a look at the contents, go through all the sprues, see what all the kits look like. And then we're going to go through the core book and the Rotten Ruin book that's within here. Have a look at the new content in there. Have a look at what content is included for the two warbands in here. And then hopefully by the end of the video, as we jump into the far future, I should have some of this built and hopefully painted as well, just to show you what it looks like in kind of in the flesh, so to speak. So yeah, without further ado, I think we'll turn this over, crack open the box, and have a look what is inside. So let me just move this away from the camera because it is going to knock the lens, because it is. I don't know if you can really tell there, but that is a big old box. It's kind of like wider than my hand. So we move that over there, and yeah. A big old box filled with sprues, majority of this being the new scenery, which is really cool. So we'll take out the new warbands first, have a look at them, and then we'll have a look at the scenery in this box as well. So first of all, we have got the Rotmire gang. So these are the kind of more Nurgly looking guys. And there's some really cool stuff here. They've kind of got like tribal shields and some unusual elements. There's obviously some kind of Nurgle vibes in here. But you wouldn't necessarily, until you start noticing the little details like, you know, three-eyed frogs and the various blisters and mutations and stuff that they're starting to get, they could easily be just a tribal force that exists out in Ghur. Obviously they've come under the sway of Nurgle, and that has affected them somewhat. But I mean, these look really, really cool. Really looking forward to building these up and painting them and seeing kind of what they look like in the flesh. Like I say, towards the end of the video, hopefully, we will have all these built up to show you what they look like. So yeah, so they're really cool. So that's one warband of 10 models that's in the box. The other one is the Horns of Hashut. So yeah, these worship the same god that the Chaos Dwarves worshipped. And there's some elements of that in here. You've kind of got like bull heads on them. There's lots of kind of like chain and manacle motifs on the models as well, kind of tying into their slightly more sinister background. You've got a cool kind of like flame cannon here as well. That's really fun. So yeah, both these warbands I'm looking forward to seeing how they go together. In the past, a lot of the Warcry warbands have got a lot of alternate parts as well. There's different weapons that you can give them. So obviously when we get into the assembly instructions, we'll see, you know, just how these go together and what you can do with them. So that's the two warbands. We've then got an awful lot of scenery. So we've got a number of unique sprues. So if we take all this out, 2 rope bridges, a tree. In fact, you know what? I think a majority of these are unique sprues. If we move this out of the way. So I had the feeling we'd had 2 identical ones, but we don't. So it looks like there's 4 unique standing pieces. We'll have a look at those in a minute. And then we get 2 duplicated frames. So these ones here, which seem to be the bridges. So I'll move that out of the way to there. We'll have a quick look at this one. And I've got to say, I really like these. Obviously they hook onto the scenery pieces, so you can make some different layouts. In the original Warcry you had some cards showing you different kind of battlefield layouts that you could have. I assume I'll have the same here. Obviously there's nothing to stop you using this scenery in your games of Age of Sigmar as well. If you combine this with the Thondian Strongpoint, you'll have a really nice Ghur themed table. We've also got parts on here for the ruined Seraphon ship as well, which is interesting. Hopefully when we get into the kind of lore part of the book, we can see what's going on there. But yeah, that's something I'm really kind of looking forward to digging into and finding out what happens. So you get 2 of them. We've got this big piece here. Obviously a lot of these are building up the kind of trees and stuff that we find on here. But you've got lots of nods to that Thondian Strongpoint, with all the skeletons and stuff on them, and all these kind of like bamboo kind of dwellings and platforms. So obviously from a gameplay mechanic, you know, there's stuff for you to stand on, but it also hints that there's people living in these kind of swamps and woods and weird stuff that's going on. Next one looks to be a larger kind of standalone tree. Again, they all have platforms on them to allow the platform, the kind of walkways to link together. And I think that's a really kind of elegant design for it. Now I'm hoping, all assembled, that this all fits back into the box that it came in. It's a minor detail, but some people will find that important for storage, so I will let you know at the end of the video if this does all fit back in the box when it's built up. Obviously the miniatures you might have to take out separately, but it is handy to keep all the scenery in a big sturdy box. And then this is the one that has the big skull on it, I believe. So again, at the end of the video we'll have these all built up and I should have some paint on them as well. But yeah, that looks really nice. And then finally we get this sprue here, which again has some really nice detail on it. Again, more skeletons and bones, and again very much like the Thondian Strongpoint stuff, so I think that scenery would match with this kind of really nicely. So that is all the plastic in the box. What I'll do is drag this back over here and we'll have a look at all the kind of card and paper components. So a quick jump cut later to get rid of all the cellophane. This is what we get inside. So if we move this out of the way for now, we get a little measure. So I mean, really you're going to want to take measure, but you do get a little measure thing in here so you can see how far models are away from each other. You also get a sheet of tokens as well for all your various statuses and wounds and the like, so that's cool. You also get a full board in here as well. So this is, they're all kind of standardised sizes now for majority of the Games Workshop games, so you can use multiples of these to put together larger battlefields. I think you can use 2 of these boards to make kind of a small Age of Sigmar game, and then do 4 of these boards for a full-size game. You've got 2 different sides as well, so you've got elements of maybe the Seraphon ship on that side, and then you've got a more kind of generic kind of browny waste side on the other one. Apologies for the glare on that, but that is cool. So we'll move that out of the way. The rest of the stuff that we've got in the box then are the various stat cards for each warband. Now we'll look at these properly when we go through the books. Are all in there, but you do get one for each model in the box with the various weapon loadouts and the points values on there as well. You also get the cards with the various abilities for different duplicate dice. You get your kind of mission cards. So again, we'll have a look at this in a bit more detail when we go through the rule book, but that lets you determine up your mission. So you've got the map, you've got the actual physical layout of the map as well, so which scenery piece goes there. This is all using the contents of the box as well. For previous editions, they did release other sets with different scenery pieces. It wouldn't surprise me if they follow the kill team method and release a different box every quarter with 2 new warbands in and a new set of scenery. You then get the kind of victory condition itself. So again, some fun stuff there. And then a twist as well, which basically kind of mixes up how the mission works. So using those various decks of cards, you generate your mission, and that takes you through how to play the game. You get the 2 books, you get the core rule book and the Rot and Ruin book. We'll have a look at those in more detail in a bit, so just put those to one side. Dice in the bottom there, quite a lot of dice, 5 of each colour, 6 of each colour. And you get the bases for all the models in the box as well. We'll have a quick look at the instructions before we move on to the main rules though, and just have a quick look at how this all goes together. So a lot of these warbands have got optional parts. You will want to look at the loadouts on the cards to see how you want to assemble your warband first before you stick them together. In the grand scheme of things, it shouldn't matter too much, but obviously if you want to optimize your build, you might want to just pick your weapon. So for example, this guy can be built with 2 Raker Claws or a Raker Claw and a net. So yeah, you will want to kind of work out which of those you want to do. Likewise, this guy is quite cool. He's got 2 different weapon options and 2 different poses as well. So if you want to kind of like maximize all the different options, you might have to get 2 boxes of these to get all the different variants that you want, but you're definitely going to be able to build a legal warband out of these, I imagine. Likewise for the rest of the warband as well, you've got the option of dual weapons or a weapon and a shield as well. So again, what I'm probably going to do is build a variety, so most weapon options are represented throughout the warband. Likewise for the Horns of Hashut, you've got a couple of different options here for weapons, and likewise most models have got options for weapons on them as well. So what I'm probably going to do is just build them so all the weapons are represented within the warband, and if I did want to kind of finesse it later on, I can always pick up another box and kind of specialise into a certain weapon loadout. But yeah, they look fairly simple to put together and not too difficult. We've then got the instructions for building the scenery in here as well. Again, that's probably going to take a little bit longer than the miniatures, but it will look really good when it's done. And obviously scenery is a key part of games of Warcry as well, so you want to make sure you've got all that represented properly on the battlefield. So this will probably be the first thing I start painting up, I think. I think it's spray it as Andry dust, and then lots of contrast and stuff. You can probably get this done quite quickly. So, but yeah, without further ado, let's have a look at the books that come in the box and have a look at the changes to the game. So within the box comes 2 books, the core book and Rot and Ruin. What we'll do is have a look at the core book first and check out all the rules and rules changes. So first of all, I want to say it's really, really nice from an aesthetic point of view, this book. Nice colour scheme that's like reflected across all the new Warcry products, and as ever it is gorgeous inside. We've got some nice pictures of miniatures, we've got some really cool kind of like double page spreads of artwork, and yeah, it's really cool. So the book opens up talking about collecting, Warcry, getting into the hobby, all the usual stuff that you would expect from you know, Games Workshop rule books. Again, there's some really, really nice artwork in here. We then get a little bit of a catch-up lore-wise of the story of Age of Sigmar so far, going through to the era of the Beast. And we also learn a little bit about Talaxis. So essentially a Seraphon void ship has crashed within the Gnarlwood, and it is mostly destroyed, but elements of it are still intact. And inside some of these vaults is kind of arcane technology and mysterious devices that has been whispered about across the various Grand Alliances. There's all sorts of cool stuff in here, equipment that can bring the dead back to life. There's stuff here that can alter time. These might be rumours, they might be genuine, we don't really know. But what we do know is that an explorer came across this, and the word has spread that there's all these kind of ancient devices on the remains of this this Seraphon ship. And the Vaulted Talaxis is essentially the intact element deep within the forest that is essentially the kind of thing that the various warbands are looking for within this arc of Warcry. And the game does call out that over the course of the next year we'll see how this kind of expedition into the forest goes. So it wouldn't surprise me if this kind of culminates in Catacombs 2.0 once we get onto the ship itself and are trying to find these artifacts. So that's really cool. I like that they're going to be kind of 4 linked boxes with scenery that'll all go together to create a really nice Age of Sigmar board with a lot of cool kind of Ghur themed scenery, and also a nice continuing narrative that starts from this box and will continue every quarter through the other Warcry boxes. So that is really, really cool. So yeah, we learn a bit about the forest as well. The trees themselves are alive and carnivorous and go hunting things, so it's not a great place that you want to get lost in. This is the environment that we're fighting over, so yeah, the land is as deadly as the fighters, really. We learn a little bit about the Gnarlwood and some of the main players. Now on the map we do see a few locations that could be hints towards who we'll maybe see in future expansion boxes. I don't think all of these are going to be in there, but there's some fun stuff. So we've got the Centaur Stampedes. Now obviously Centaurs are really old models. It'd be nice to see Centaurs reimagined for Warcry as a kind of Beasts of Chaos warband. That'd be really cool. Weird Lights, Zinch. The Eater Pits are mentioned. The Ogre Moor tribes actually eat the Gnarlwoods. They use the trees in some of their recipes, so they have got giant kind of moor pits and stuff. So again, that's some cool stuff that we could see as scenery. The Spine Crawler Webs is a good possibility. That could be a nice opportunity for us to get some new Spiderfang Grots, maybe even Spiderfang Scuttlers that we originally saw in Silver Tower, and we haven't seen, you know, official units for them since, so that'd be something cool. Van Talax is the explorer who discovered the Seraphon void ship and the artifacts inside. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a warband for him. It does mention that him and his kind of followers have gone missing and they're rumoured to be inside the ship. Whether they've gone mad or they've been killed, we don't know. It would be cool to see them as a nice, almost like a Mordheim warband, these explorers travelling out to try and find these artifacts. That'd be really cool. But yeah, there's loads of stuff on here. There's Slayers, we've got Vampires, we've got Khorne. Again, I don't think all of these will be represented, but I certainly think some of them might be hints of what we might see in the future, so that is pretty cool. I really like this page where we find out about the ship, the Eye of Chotek, known as Talaxis, to the explorers named after the explorer who discovered it. And again, I hope as we start to get closer to it, maybe we'll see scenery pieces that represent kind of the fallen parts of the ship. We do get a little bit of wreckage in this box, but as this is the main kind of like thing that we're all hunting for, I'm guessing over the course of the year-long arc, our warbands will find the ship and then we'll start going into it. And, you know, could there be Seraphon still alive defending it? Could the Slann have maybe created some protection, you know, automatum or defences? We don't know, but that's really cool, and we could get, I don't know, it's kind of AOS Space Hulk by the time we get to the centre of it, which could be pretty fun. Again, I strongly believe we'll see Catacombs 2.0 once we get onto the ship itself, but again, could be completely wrong. Obviously, for the upcoming year of Kill Team, we've got what looks like something akin to Space Hulk with 3D terrain. So who knows, but there's lots of cool stuff that we could get excited about here. We also learn about the various Grand Alliances and what they've been up to as well, and their kind of incentives and what they're looking for. Obviously all of the various forces are trying to get the relics within this ship, because they've you know, some cool stuff rumoured to be in there, you know, bringing people back from the dead, controlling time, altering reality, all sorts of weird stuff like that. So we learn what the various Grand Alliances are up to and what their kind of motivations are in getting to here. It's cool to see them all represented. Hopefully very soon we'll see rules for kind of older models brought back for the new edition. But yeah, it certainly leaves the door open for this to be a more open to all the Grand Alliances than the first edition of Warcry, which was very much set within the 8 points and all about the various Chaos clans fighting each other. This definitely kind of implies that we're going to see more kind of order, destruction, death orientated warbands perhaps in some of the expansions, so that is quite exciting. So onto the main rules. This is a second edition of the game, but there's not any massive changes. There's a few tidying ups and there's some cool new things that they've added, but at its core, Warcry is the same game that you've played. So if you're new to Warcry, essentially your first step is create a warband. You can use any of the Chaos warbands that have been released for Warcry, and they're dedicated boxes where you get cards and stuff in there. You'll also be able to create warbands from any Grand Alliance, pretty much any model you should be able to take. So more on that once we know how that's getting released. But essentially you get 1,000 points to spend on that warband. You then generate up a battle plan, and that is done with random cards. We saw the cards earlier, and there's a chart in the back of the book which shows all the different variations. But essentially what we do is draw a card to represent the terrain. So that is based on the terrain within this box. The original Warcry had cards related to that one. I suspect each release that comes out after this, again, will have cards tied to that individual terrain. Once you've done that, you then draw a card to work out the deployments that'll mark out where each faction kind of starts. It'll also show the different battle groups. So when you create your warband, you split it into 3 equal battle groups, as you can see on that page there. And essentially the map will have 3 starting locations. So really you kind of build your initial warband based on the fact that they are going to be split at the start of the game. So you might want a vary of different defences and strengths in each group. You then draw a victory condition card, and that basically tells you how you win the game, and you get a twist which kind of activates a different special rule or ability or a little bit of a gimmick that affects the game. So using that combination of 4 cards, there's loads of different combinations of game that you can generate. So that's a really, really cool thing. Later on in the book we do see stuff for more kind of structured match play games, but it does mean that you can just kind of grab this box. All the scenery can be used to create the scenery based on the card that you've drawn, and generally speaking a game of Warcry takes about an hour once you know what you're doing, so that's pretty fun. Definitely a lot quicker than, you know, setting up for a day worth of Warhammer. This is certainly one that you could throw in on a games night, or if you just want a nice quick game. The footprint's quite small as well. You saw the boards earlier. At the end of the video what I'll do is set up the board with some scenery on it and show you kind of what footprint it is. It's 30 inches by 22 inches off the top of my head, and that will easily fit on a dining room table, even a coffee table in a living room. So certainly a lot less space than you'd need for a full game of Age of Sigmar, which is really cool. Warband wise, you're talking on average 10 fighters. There's actually a cap of 15 fighters, so you're not using any more than that. So yeah, obviously this box is kind of pitched as a all-in-one box, so you get all the dice in there and the rulers and everything. So if you are new to Warcry, you could just pick up this box and you and a friend could use it to play some games. And then as you get more confident with the rules and you want to expand it a little bit, you can then pick up another warband to use for yourself. And then obviously, as we said, over the course of the year there'll be 3 other boxes that come out every 3 months with some new scenery and warbands in them. So That's really, really cool. It worked really well for Kill Team, and meant that over the course of the year you could kind of collect this collection of scenery and all the different warbands. And equally, if you're not interested in them, generally speaking, a couple of months after the initial box, all the components are available separately, so the scenery, the warband, and even the books that come in them. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. Gameplay wise, there's a nice interesting mechanic in the initiative dice. So at the start of each battle round, each player will roll 6 dice, and then what you're looking to do is groups of dice, so doubles, trebles, quadruples, for example, and put them to one side. They activate your abilities that trigger during the game, and then the way initiative is determined is the most number of single dice left. So if you had, I don't know, 2 2s, 2 3s, a 4 and a 5, you would have 2 single dice, where if your opponent had 5 5s and a 1, they'd have 1 single dice. Once you've split them out, each player then gets given a wild dice, which they can use to either increase one of their pools of dice. So in the first example we had 2 2s, they could use that wild dice to also make that a 2 and make that into a treble 2. Or they can set that as another single dice, which then affects the initiative. Basically the person who's got the most unique dice will go first. So you've got a bit of a consideration to make on whether you use those dice to increase your pool of multiples, or make a pool of multiples better, or use it to try and go first by pushing the initiative in your favour, or thirdly you can actually put it to one side and save it for a later battle round. In theory, over the course of the game you could keep saving up those dice to ensure that you get the first turn in the final turn. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff you can do with that. Then basically each player will activate a fighter alternatively. So they get 2 actions per fighter, and that generally can be used for stuff that you'd expect, so moving, climbing, jumping, fighting, disengaging from combat, or kind of going into a ready status so that they can use an ability later on in the turn. Moving works as you'd expect. The move value on there, there's different things that interact for climbing and jumping, but if you've played Age of Sigmar, that'll be very, very familiar to you. So it's very freeform. You can climb up, say you could use both actions to climb up a really tall piece of scenery, and as long as you get to a solid surface by the end of it, that's fine. So you can stop like an action halfway up a wall, but you can't stop your entire turn halfway up a wall, otherwise you fall. Equally, you can jump over stuff, you can vault across stuff. Again, lots of parallels to kind of Mordheim and Necromunda and stuff like that. You've got a bit more freedom with it being kind of a model-based game rather than a unit-based game, which is really cool. Combat is dead quick and easy compared to Age of Sigmar. There's no saves, there's no to hit rolls as such, or separate to hit and to wound. You have a single roll to represent hitting and wounding at the same time, which is just comparing the strength against the toughness. If your strength is higher than the toughness, you do it on a 3+. If your strength is equal to the toughness, it's on a 4+, and if your strength is lower than the toughness, it's on a 5+. 6s always make critical hits, which basically do more damage. There's some special abilities that might trigger on a critical as well. And yeah, really, really easy. You do that, you manage to get the hit, you deal the damage to your target, that's it, job done. No saves to make, no kind of damage mitigation rolls, with some exceptions with some abilities that various warbands might have. But it makes combat really, really quick. So an activation might just be moving up to someone and attacking them. That's your activation, and then your opponent picks a model to do the same with. So very, very quick paced, really, really fun. You've got obviously a lot of scenery on the board as well, so the different kind of movements and stuff, being able to engage with that is pretty cool. If you're in combat with something, you have to make a disengage action to move away. Again, there might be some abilities that stop you doing that, and then a wait action essentially lets you activate that fighter later on in the turn, so they kind of go into a kind of ready state to be able to use them again. So that's really cool. Abilities are what you use your multiple dice for. There's a number of universal ones that are in the book, and then each warband also has some unique ones to them. Generally speaking, the more multiples of a dice you have, the stronger the ability. With those dice being re-rolled at the start of every battle round, you may as well use the ones that you've got to trigger some cool abilities. So the unique ones that you've got is double, add 1 to move of this fighter until the end of the activation. Assault, add one to the attack's characteristic. Triple respite, remove a number of damage points equal to the value of the ability. So this is where it gets kind of, I guess, add some tactics to it. If you've got 3 6s, for example, that's a nice one to hold on to for using this respite, because you know you can heal 6 wounds with it. Where if you did that with a triple 1, you're only healing 1 damage, so pretty cool. You've got Inspiring Presence. Pick a friendly fighter within 6 inches of this fighter that has not activated this battle round. You can activate that fighter immediately after this fighter's activation ends. So essentially lets you do actions with 2 fighters rather than 1. You'll notice it's got a little symbol next to it, and that means that it can only be used by hero characters, things with the hero rune mark. In the warband specific abilities, there's quite a lot of rune marks that relate to various pieces of gear that they've got. So when building your warband, you want to try and make sure that you've got fighters with those relevant rune marks so they can do those abilities. And then finally, Quad Rampage. The fighter can make a bonus move action, then they can make a bonus attack action. So basically, they actually do your 2 normal actions, and then a move, and then an attack, which is really, really strong, but obviously you need 5 dice the same to be able to do that. 4 dice the same to be able to do that, even. So yeah, you've got a range of different stuff there, and it's pretty fun. Like I say, in addition to those, you've got warband specific ones that can lock in. I really like this mechanic. It's kind of shared abilities and initiative in one, which is fun. What has been added to the game, however, are reactions. So reactions are something that we've seen recently in the Horus Heresy, and it is a way of making the passive player, the person who isn't active, able to do things within their turn to influence the game. In Horus Heresy, this went down really, really well. They made it kind of really fun in that there's always something you can do in your opponent's turn, and reactions go some way to doing that. So they cost you one of your activations. So you can only use it if a fighter's not activated yet, or if they've activated and they're waiting, so they've still got a free activation to spend. Or in a campaign battle, a fighter's got 1 level of renown. That's another resource they can gain over a campaign and spend them to do reactions. There's 3 core ones in the book, and then every warband's going to have their own unique reaction as well. So the core ones that we've got is Counter. So a fighter can make this reaction after they're targeted by a melee attack action, but before the hit rolls are made. For each hit roll from the attack that misses, allocate 1 damage to the attacking fighter, and for each hit roll of 1, allocate 2 damage to the attacking fighter. So this is pretty fun. What you can do is, say if an enemy fighter tries to attack something a lot tougher, it's quite likely they're going to roll more misses than hits. So you can use this counter reaction to really dissuade people from taking pot shots at your tough fighters, by meaning that there's possibility of quite a bit of damage coming back to them, which is really fun. Take Cover is used when a fighter is targeted by a missile attack. Again, before it hits, after hit rolls have been made, roll the dice for each critical hit, and a 4 plus the critical hit becomes a normal hit instead. So a way of kind of downgrading criticals. And then strike them down. They can make the reaction when an enemy fighter makes a disengage action. On a 4 plus, they take D6 damage. So really, really cool. Like I say, it isn't free. It does cost you one of your actions in your activation. However, yeah, it gives you some fun stuff you can do to interact with the other player. So really, really like that. There's quite detailed rules for terrain. These are built up further in the Rot and Ruin book for the terrain that comes in the box. Much like Warcry, I suspect over the course of the year we'll see this expanded upon and built on as new things come into play. Again, it all makes sense. You know, you can run across bridges and jump across gaps and lots of fun stuff. A lot more interactive than in a kind of mass battle game, because we're really talking about the kind of warrior level, which allows you to add a little bit more detail. You also get, we saw earlier, a sheet of tokens in the box. We get a kind of explanation on how they work, objective markers, being able to carry treasure, marking what activations and wounds you've got. Again, is all done via tokens. What I would say is it's handy to have a little box to put those tokens in during the game. You do have enough in the box for a game, but if you are splitting the box with someone, if you can get hold of another sheet of tokens, that's going to be really good, because you can definitely have enough for whatever game of Warcry that you play. So as part of your warband, in addition to your fighters from your chosen faction, you can also take allies, thralls and monsters. So this is additional stuff that you can add to your warband. We saw a couple of thralls added in the original run of Warcry, and I'd quite like to think that we'll get some, you know, Ghur specific creatures that you can add to your warbands. I think that'd be quite fun. Also, you can take some allies, basically other factions within your Grand Alliance that can come along with you. So that's pretty cool. So, for example, if you were, I don't know, the Rotmire Creed from this box, and you wanted to take some allied Skaven, for example, they are from a different faction in the game, but within the same Grand Alliance, so you can take some allies with you, which again kind of opens up the list building possibilities and lets you do some fun stuff with your lists. You can also take a single monster with you in your warband. They've got slightly different abilities and they work a slightly different way to most of your fighters, but generally speaking they've got lots of wounds and they're quite strong and they've got some powerful abilities. They can only do one action, but they can do some really cool stuff with that. We then get a breakdown of all the different rune marks. At this point there's quite a lot of rune marks. This is essentially the same as keywords within Age of Sigmar, for example. So with these you can identify what weapons they're armed with, what kind of characteristics they've got, the different fighters. There's different abilities that will trigger off different combinations of rune marks as well. And yeah, there's quite a lot of them for the different factions now. So one of the cool things that Games Workshop has done across most of its game systems is the concept of 3 ways to play. This is split into open play, match play and narrative play, and the book offers a few different optional game modes that you can do to kind of build on the core rules and add some extra fun stuff to do. So open play, for example, allows you to play games known as Coalition of Death that lets you use teams of players. So it could be a team of 2 versus a team of 2, and various missions and rules and stuff that work well within that kind of special rule. It's not stuff that you need to use every time, but nice to do if you've got a group of players on and want to do something different. So that's really fun. In a similar vein, we've got Triumph and Treachery free-for-alls. So this allows 4 players to fight off against each other in a big battle royale. Triumph and Treachery was one of our favourite kind of game modes in Warhammer Fantasy, and it's great to see it kind of live on in some of the other kind of Age of Sigmar products. As you can imagine, it is chaos. There's lots of backstabbing going on. Don't trust anybody. The other way of playing is match play, and this is essentially your kind of structured, organised tournament style play. So aiming to get balanced games that is suitable for a tournament setting. Obviously with the random nature of the cards in the box, you could get a few combinations that maybe favour one player too strongly, or you know, the random twist that you pull might affect the gameplay too much. So this goes out to detail 6 kind of like stock missions that are more suited for tournament play. So you get a set deployment map with a victory condition that goes with it. You get 6 of these, and basically that's the kind of stuff that'd be used at, say, events at Warhammer World, for example. Optionally, there are some cards with a match play rune mark. If you do want to draw it in the more traditional style, you can just pull those cards out of the decks and create a random deck that's more suited to match play games. So that's quite a fun way of doing things too. So we get 6 of those, and then we also get rules for running Warcry tournaments as well. So this is pretty fun. If you want to run a tournament between you and your friends, you have the rules in here in order to do that. If you have like a gaming club or something and want to have a kind of a day of Warcry and get some games going, this will allow you to kind of do that. And there's also going to be some specific quests that tie into the tournament as well. We'll speak about quests in a little bit when we get to the narrative play, but essentially it's something that your warband's trying to do to kind of progress. So narrative play is really the kind of strongest part of the game, and what really kind of draws me to it. I'm a big fan of like Path to Glory and Crusade and Necromunda and Mordheim and stuff like that. And for me, it's more than just the individual game, it's the continuing story of your warband. What they're trying to achieve, them kind of advancing themselves, getting some cool relics. Sometimes things go wrong and you might lose one of your members of your warband and end up getting injured or dying. So narrative play allows you to create this ongoing story for your warband. You start with a small roster of kind of fighters, and over the course of the campaign that'll expand. They'll get new artifacts, they'll get new abilities, they'll explore new places. And the team have really kind of expanded this out from what we got in the original edition of the game. There's some influences from Path to Glory in there, there's some Crusade elements. There's even some nods to things like Mordheim and Necromunda, which is really, really cool to see. So basically you pick your warband to start with as normal. This is your kind of standing roster. And then your leader will get a trait picked from the list below, which is something cool that they can do as a kind of a bonus to being the leader. And then you'll pick quests, and the quest will give you something that your warband's trying to do over the course of some games. So whether it be get a monster and bind it to your warband, or go and find a specific relic by hunting through the kind of ruins of this Seraphon ship. It's really, really cool. So in addition to that, they've added some kind of a level that goes on top of this, known as kind of campaign arcs. And this is a quest that is, well, it's kind of a quest that, rather than impacting just you, it impacts the entire gaming group or a couple of players. So this is really, really cool. You're not kind of like isolated to just doing stuff on your sheet anymore. There is some interaction with the various other warbands in the campaign, and I imagine as these books kind of continue, we'll see that expanded again and again. For the first edition, we saw some really, really cool kind of quest content for each of the warbands, and I expect all this will continue really well into the new edition of the game. And I'm sure with little effort you can get those previous kind of narrative content working for this as well. There's not really anything that's going to stop you from doing that. There's a few cool things that they've added. So, for example, after the game, you can send you see if you guys are injured, get your glory as normal, and then you can send you guys out to go and kind of find relics. They can go exploring and see if they get anything. Again, very similar to the kind of post-game sequence in Necromunda and Mordheim and stuff like that. So that's really, really fun. What's also cool is that you have an encampment. You start the game kind of on the outskirts of the Gnarlwood, and over the course of the campaign you can find new locations that grant you different bonuses and even increase the points limit of your warband that you're allowed to take. What's really cool is that you're kind of always on the back foot. Your encampment's going to get attacked by creatures and different warriors, or what was initially a safe little outpost that nobody knows suddenly becomes quite a perilous place, and eventually you might have to kind of grab all your belongings and leave there and trying to find a different location by going on a specific quest to find a new location. I think that's really, really fun. We start with some locations in here. There's also some locations that are unique to each Grand Alliance. There's also some locations that are unique to each warband as well. And again, as this series of boxes continues over the course of the year, I suspect we'll see this expanded. It'd be really cool to kind of like print out a big map. I think there is one in the back of here, and kind of track where each warband's encamped and kind of see what's going on there and see the conflict between them. So yeah, really, really fun. I think that's really cool. As the warband kind of increases in kind of glory, you can use that to kind of recruit new people to your warband. You can expand it, you can go on quests to get monsters. So again, think Crusade or Path to Glory and you're part way there. I think this is going to be the way I exclusively kind of play this game, because I think it's going to be really, really fun. What's good about Warcry though, it is so easy to flip into those other modes of playing. So if you want a quick pickup game that's not related to your campaign, you could just grab a 1,000-point warband, grab the random cards, generate up a game, and you can easily play a game in an hour. Equally, if you wanted to kind of add somebody to an existing kind of campaign, because a lot of it's done with the quests and you kind of self-manage it, a bit like Path to Glory and Crusade, it's really easy for people to kind of like join and get started as well. So I really hope that the second edition of Warcry kind of introduces a lot of people to the game, because with their existing Age of Sigmar models, it's going to be really easy to kind of get involved with that and then find one of the kind of boxed factions that you love and use those too. So yeah, I think this is going to be really fun. Mention quests, and this is essentially similar to the kind of quests in Path to Glory, things that your warband are trying to do in order to get a reward. So there's a number of universal ones, and each warband also, each Grand Alliance, sorry, also gets some unique to them. So for example here we've got Treasures of the Narwood. So they kind of get some progress and eventually can go and try and get a specific treasure from this list. They can try and get more glory, they can try and get an ally, they can go exploring for new locations, they can hunt a beast and try and tame a monster into the warband. Again, really nice thematic stuff that your warband's trying to do while exploring the Heart of Ghur. And there's some unique battle plans for some of them. So for the monster, for example, you get a unique kind of cinematic showpiece battle that you play when you're trying to do that. And then for each of the Grand Alliances you get the same. So for Chaos you'll get 3 quests, and that's generally the case in each of these. You then get a unique encampment that a Grand Alliance can locate over the course of the campaign. And then there's also some like artifacts and boons and like that again are unique to each faction. So one of those for each Grand Alliance, which means that even if you're not using one of the kind of new warbands that's coming up over the course of this kind of campaign arc, you have got other stuff that you can use for existing ones as well, which is pretty fun. So each of the Grand Alliances are represented there. We then get 2 campaign arcs in the book as well. So this is essentially a series of missions that impact more than one player. So you get the Path of Ventalax, which is about 2 warbands trying to find one of these kind of shards of the Seraphon ship and the treasures that are inside. One of them's got a map, and the other one, in traditional action movie villain style, is kind of following them to the location. And then the other one is the Chotek Valley, where again part of the crashed temple ship is there, and 4 different warbands are kind of fighting over it, culminating in a big 4-player battle with some kind of neutral Seraphon that are trying to defend the ship. So again, really cool cinematic stuff, and these you can slot into your campaign at any point. So you can use a mixture of these and quests, and really you could throw in just some randomly generated games as well. With games like this, it's very free form, and you can pick and choose the parts that you like. And again, I imagine this is something that we'll see expanded out as we get more releases for the game, so that's really exciting. And then finally in the book we get images of all the cards. So I suspect this book's going to be available separately after the general release. I think that was on Warcom. So if you don't have the cards, or you've forgotten the cards and you've just got the rule book, you can still generate up the battles by using kind of D6 charts, D66, to pick the various deployment maps that you have got, the various kind of victory conditions. And again, there's a lot of different things that you can do to claim victory, the twists that are available, and the only thing that's not included in there is the terrain cards. I think they might be in the Rot and Ruin book, I might be wrong, but basically using those you can generate a game using your existing scenery collection, or add the Heart of Ghur terrain cards in order to generate up your terrain layout for the game. We also get a warband roster for your games, your kind of campaign games, and a map showing you where your location is. And then stats for your heroes and fighters. So yeah, really, really cool book. I think that's going to be available separately, and like I say, that covers the kind of core rules. This replaces the previous Warcry rulebook, so yeah, you're going to want to pick this up if you have got an existing Warcry force as well, because this does kind of like supersede the new one and add some new things in there. So in addition to the core book, we also get the Rot and Ruin book. So this is a warband tome, which is something new for this edition. And essentially, if you think Age of Sigmar, this is a battle tome for the 2 factions within the box. If you play Kill Team, this will be very familiar to you because that has a very similar model where in each kind of new box that comes out, with all the scenery and the 2 kind of teams in there, you get a book with the rules for those 2 factions, some narrative stuff about them, and rules for all the scenery and some unique kind of like quests and stuff, and that's what we get in here. So we'll have a quick look through here too. Again, it opens up with some kind of lore about both of the factions. Again, a kind of recap on what's happening within the Gnarlwood, the Crash Seraphon ship. And yeah, we learned a little bit about the warbands. So we have got the Rotmire Creed, who worship the Leech Lord, who is a god of pestilence and disease. And yeah, it's probably Nurgle, but what's cool about Warcry is that these are various kind of tribes and factions that, even though they may inadvertently worship chaos, it's not obviously so at first glance. Obviously we know it's probably Nurgle, but they don't know. They just think it's a lord of leeches and disease that they work for. And these guys are quite cool. They live out in the swamps and they extract poison and pestilence and stuff, and yeah, they're pretty fun. They are facing off against the Horns of Hashut, which for fans of the world that was, is the god that the Chaos Dwarves worship. So there's lots of fire and smoke and that kind of stuff, and that is reflected within their rules as well. So in the book we get nice artwork for all of the miniatures in the box, and some cool stuff that isn't out yet. And then we get the kind of rules for each of the factions. So like I say, you do get the cards within the box. It is nice to have the book as well to kind of page through with all the stats on one page. So the Rotmire Creed are kind of all around kind of poison, and they've got some tricksy things. Across the weapons there's a lot of kind of range 2 stuff, so they can do things at a distance as well, which is pretty cool. For their abilities there's a lot of kind of gear specific stuff. You'll notice a lot of their fighters have some kind of unique rune marks on them, and they trigger some of these abilities that we see here. There's some fun stuff. So their reaction, Bile Blood, basically think acid blood from Aliens and you're halfway there. When somebody attacks them, you roll a dice for each critical hit scored, and on a 3+ you allocate 3 damage points to the person that attacked them, which basically makes it really dangerous to get criticals against them. So that's pretty cool. Their double Gruesome Harvest, the fighter can use his ability only if an enemy fighter has been taken down by a melee attack. The fighter now has a potent vial until the end of the battle. While he's got it, whenever they use an ability, the value of the ability is treated to be a 6, even if the ability dice shows a different score. So earlier on we saw the example of the healing action. With that, you could make it count as a 6 and get the benefit of 6 dice, so that's really, really fun. And again, there's a few different abilities that trigger and will do damage based on the value of that dice, and again, with this it'll count as a 6, so that's pretty fun. Blowpipe, pick a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of the fighter and roll 2 dice. For each 4+, allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value, half the value of this ability, rounding up. In addition, for each 6, subtract 1 from the fighter's toughness until the end of the battle round. So that's pretty cool as well. And again, you could set them up with the potent vial and then trigger that to do 3 damage per 4+. Pretty fun. Double hooked net, pick an enemy fighter within an inch of the fighter and roll a dice. On a 3+, allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the roll, and that fighter cannot make any move actions or disengage for the rest of the battle round. Again, really good. Triple, slashing attack, roll a dice for each visible enemy fighter within 3 inches of this fighter. On a 3 to 4, allocate 1 damage point to the fighter being rolled for. On a 5 to 6, allocate a number of damage points equal to the value of the ability. Triple lethal injection, pick a visible enemy fighter within an inch of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value of the ability. For each roll that exceeds the toughness characteristic of the fighter, allocate 5 damage points to them, and again combine that with the Gruesome Harvest. You could have 6 dice there, which is crazy. And then Quad Ensnaring Strike, the fighter makes a bonus action. In addition, if that attack action scores any critical hits, The target fighter cannot make move actions or disengage actions for the rest of the battle round. So yeah, some really, really fun stuff there, and some nice combos that you can do with getting that poison and then using it to trigger even more powerful abilities later on. For the Horns of Hashut, they're kind of slightly tougher. They've got quite good damage on their weapons. In particular, you've got some amazing range stuff with the Flame Hurler with a range of 6, rolling 3 dice, with criticals doing 5 damage each. You know, you could potentially one-shot some enemy fighters with that if you're really, really lucky. There's a lot of kind of fire and brimstone about their abilities. So their reaction, Breath of Cinder and Smoke. A fighter can make this reaction when an enemy fighter finishes a move within 3 inches of them. Roll a dice. If the roll is equal or greater than their toughness, allocate 3 damage points to them and subtract 1 from their strength for the rest of the battle round. That's pretty cool. Double, Merciless Cruelty. The next attack action made by this fighter, this activation, scores a critical hit on a 5+. If the target fighter has already 5 or more damage points allocated to them before the attack action is made. Now, if you, for example, heavily wounded a fighter and then fire your Flame Hurler at it, you've got a 5+ chance to be doing 5 damage per each hit. So again, making it more likely you'll get those criticals off. Double, Stampede of Iron until the end of the fighter's activation. The next time this fighter finishes a move within an inch of an enemy fighter, pick a visible enemy fighter within an inch of this fighter and roll a dice. On a 4 to 5, allocate 1 damage point. On a 6, allocate a number of damage points equal to the value of the ability. Double, Later Waste. A fighter can use this ability only if an enemy fighter has been taken down by an attack action made by this activation. The fighter makes a bonus move action or bonus attack action. Triple, Engulfing Flames of Dark Artifice. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value. For each 4+, allocate 3 damage. Then do the same for each other visible enemy fighter within 2 inches of that enemy fighter, but instead roll a number of dice equal to half this value. So nice kind of like burst AoE attack. Ash Bomb. Pick a visible point within 6 inches of this fighter that's on the battlefield floor or a platform and place a token there. That token is an Ash Bomb. While an enemy fighter is within 3 inches of an Ash Bomb, subtract 1 from their toughness characteristic and subtract 1 from their attacks characteristic of all attack actions made by them at the end of the battle round and remove the token. So that's really, really cool. If there's a location on the battlefield you're fighting to, stick that on there and try and dissuade the opponent from going there. And then Quad, Unleash the Raging Taurus. The fighter makes a bonus melee attack action. In addition, add 1 to the damage points allocated by each critical hit scored from that bonus attack action. So yeah, pretty cool. I like both of these warbands. There's some fun stuff. In the book, we also get some terrain rules, and there's some cool kind of actions and abilities that kind of trigger off those. So for example, the Watchtower has got a horn, so for a triple you can sound the alarm. You've got rope bridges that can be cut down, leading people to kind of fall to their death once you've cut it, you know, in true kind of Indiana Jones style. The Narlogs, and we'll look at the theory in a bit, they're quite chunky, but there's some rules to kind of dictate that you can't really kind of climb on these kind of branches. Again, just makes it clear for everyone involved in the game. Rib cages are deadly and obstacles, where the runes you can kind of hop over if you want to. So again, it just clarifies it out. And what's really nice as well, you've got some nice artwork as well to show you kind of how to paint them up. And then we again get some campaign stuff for each of the factions. So each of them gets 3 unique quests, a unique location, and some unique artifacts, just like you do for the Grand Alliances in the book. And obviously you can combo those with the Grand Alliance ones as well, giving you a nice range of different stuff that you can get with your warband. And again, as this kind of expands out, I imagine we'll see this for kind of other warbands as well, which is fun. And then finally we get a nice branching campaign arc as well, where there's a total of 6 different missions, but depending on who wins each game will determine which mission you're playing. So again, that's really fun. It is designed around the 2 factions in the box, so other warbands can't fight it, but it does mean that if you're playing in a campaign and you've got the Rotmire Creed and your friend's got the Horns of Hashut, you can choose to play through this campaign arc together, which is really fun, and there's some unique stuff to be had kind of once you complete that. So yeah, you then get a campaign arc as well for 4 to 6 players too. Yeah, some fun stuff that you can have there. So yeah, really cool. Like with the Kill Team books as well, you also get a chart which lets you generate some names, an origin and a leader background for your fighters as well. So really, really cool stuff. So that's a look at both of the books that come in the Heart of Ghur box. What we'll do now is have a look at the assembled scenery and warbands. So before we finish, here's a look at the assembled scenery and some of the miniatures in the box. And I've got to say, I am really impressed with this scenery. Apologies I'm not being able to get this painted up in time for the review, but between today and the release date I'm going to be working on these, and we'll probably have a follow-up article and video where we look at these kind of painted up and what they look like. But yeah, if hopefully you can tell from the video, these scenery pieces are really big compared to the miniatures. They're quite impressive and they'll work really well in games of Age of Sigmar. If I just take these guys off here, the rope bridges just join with little hooks, so you can use those to put these together in multiple different ways. But then the standalone pieces would work really well for games of Age of Sigmar. And again, they're really characterful with loads of detail. I like that there's a lot kind of little touches on these. If we take this guy off here and have a look at this scenery piece, at first it looks like the tree is kind of growing out of the skeleton of this beast underneath it. But if you look closer, you can actually see that what's actually happened here is that this tree has hunted down this beast, it's tangled its roots around its neck, and it's actually choked it to death, and it's slowly kind of consuming its life essence. Really, really weird little touch that kind of plays on the kind of lore that we've seen in the book. But yeah, they managed to kind of sculpt that in there and capture the vicious essence of Ghur, which is really nice. So you get the four big trees, and again, like I say, all of these are, if we kind of compare that to, I mean, this goes on a 32mm base, you can see how big that is. For comparison, it's kind of like a bit bigger than my hand. So yeah, really, really nice. And I think these are some of the best trees that they've done for Age of Sigmar, and like I say, these work just as well for Age of Sigmar as they would for Warcry. So really looking forward to having these all painted up, and they're all different designs as well. So like this one's got 2 platforms. I think it'd pair really well with the Thondian Strongpoint box to give you a nice kind of like Thondia scenery set. And then in addition to that, you get some nice little walls and pieces of cover. Obviously we've seen all these in the core book, haven't we? But some nice, you've kind of, on these you can see kind of elements of the ruined Seraphon void ship as well. So that's really cool. So looking forward to painting these all up because there's some really nice details. So just move those out of the way for one moment. We'll take a look at some of the miniatures as well, and they are very, very nice too. So the Horns of Hashut, we've got lots of kind of like chains and brass and kind of bull heads and lots of horns on them. They're really, really good. Where's the flamethrower guy? I've lost him. There he is. This is probably my favourite model for them, with this kind of, well, it's basically a flamethrower, isn't it? Flamethrower meets bagpipes. But yeah, really, really cool. So they're cool. They're kind of like lesser fighters, are kind of less heavily armed, but they've still got some of the kind of like motifs of the other models in the warband. Most of the models have got a few different parts as well. I know there's different multiple heads. These have got different ends that you can take on them. Looking at the Rotmire Creed, they've got a completely different look to them. So obviously the set's got a lot of kind of bamboo and stuff in it, and they've got a lot of kind of armour crafted from the same thing. You've got stilts to kind of represent them creeping through these kind of like swamps and lagoons that are going to be around the forest. And again, some really nice details on them. Again, a couple of the fighters have got a few different options in how you build them. So this guy, and I can't see him, this guy, you can swap the weapons round on them to get the same profile but with a different pose, which is especially good if you want to have multiples of them within the same warband as well. This guy, similarly, you can build him like this, or you can give him a net as well. So they're certainly going to be worth to picking up another box of these to kind of maximise all the options. Certainly on the Rotmire Creed, less so on the Horns of Hashut. You can pretty much make your... Well, both of these you can make 1,000 points out of the box, but there's a lot more options that you might want doubles of in the Nurgle themed warband. So yeah, really, really impressed with this. Like I say, we're going to be painting this up over the next week. In fact, I have started just before I started recording, just put a lot of this is going to be done with contrast as well. So Grelin Dunes over Xandri Dust Spray gets a nice bamboo effect, so we'll get that on. We'll dry brush up a lot of the kind of bone areas. Thinking Dryad bark for the trees. Like I say, once I've painted all that, I will do another video where we go over how I painted it and have a bit of a showcase of the miniatures. But yeah, I just wanted to show kind of what it looks like and how kind of impressive the collection of scenery looks on the board. So that was a look at Warcry Heart of Ghur, the new edition of Warcry, and an awesome new box to kind of herald in this new era of the game. I'm super excited for this. Warcry is a really cool game, and this box makes it really accessible to get into it. Some of the stuff's changed, much for the better, so reactions are cool, gives the opposing player something to do in their turn. All of the narrative stuff is brilliant, and I can't wait to play through a big campaign with more players. I think we're going to get a pretty rapid release schedule for Warcry as well. Obviously, we know that every quarter a new big box is coming out with new rules and warbands and scenery. So that's going to be really, really exciting. So yeah, watch this space. I think it's going to be a good 12 months of Warcry. So yeah, before you go, I hope you've enjoyed this video. We do lots of unboxings and battle reports. Currently mid-studio at the minute, so I've not been able to do any battle reports at the time being. Hopefully in the next few months I'll be in the new Sprues and Brews studio, and we'll do some live streams and live painting and battle reports again. So bear with us, we will be there. It's unfortunately not in my hands. The builders have delayed us a little bit more, but we will soon be there. So if you've enjoyed this, why not give us a subscribe on here and be notified when we get new content out. We will be covering the new edition of Warcry in quite some detail as well. Like I say, we're going to do a separate post once we've painted up all these guys as well. If you're a fan of Age of Sigmar, we do a lot of that as well, and also 40k, Horus Heresy, basically any GW system. So if you're into anything like that, yeah, give us a follow. I've also got a companion article up on spruesandbrews.com. We're going into a bit more detail, do a full write-up of the book, and we dive a bit more into the kind of Crusade campaign side of things. So yeah, so I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you look forward to picking up Warcry, and we'll see you soon.